between us. All right. Well, we are live on YouTube. Thank you for being here. You notice I got a good looking gentleman next to me. Sometimes you get somebody next to you and you want to look better looking, but I'm confident. So I'm getting a better looking person next to me and I'm okay with it. So this is Ben. I'm going to introduce him here in a second. But if you're watching live now, let us know where you're from. I already got some people here in the chat box. So let us know where you're from in the chat box. We really appreciate it. We like to kind of see where the audience is. Make sure to like, comment, and share this. So whether you're watching it now or after the fact, Ben and I are going to drop a lot of really, really good knowledge. So like, comment, and share. And specifically, let us know where you're from. And start to fill up that chat box with questions about real estate investing, whether it's multifamily or not. We're going to focus on multifamily mainly, but we can talk all things real estate investing as you usually see. So fill up that chat box with where you're from, likes, comments, and questions. And if you're watching this after the fact, do the same thing. But enough of me, Ben. So why don't you introduce yourself a little bit, talk a little bit about what you do, and then we can kind of talk about how our relationships develop.
Sure. My name is Ben Margalski. I work with a brokerage here locally. It's Marcus and Millichap. We have roughly 80 offices across the country, about 1,800 agents. We're all commercial agents. We specialize in, I guess, our own niche. Mine has become multi-housing. I have been a specialist in St. Louis MSA since 2014 and have solely, performed in the sale and disposition of multi-housing assets.
And you've almost sold $60 million worth of real estate.
I think it's just a tick over 57 million since then.
You got to learn the YouTube math. Like almost 60 is just like 57. It sounds better.
Yeah. And 2020 was kind of a funky year too. Yeah. So, throwing into account that we didn't do, we did about half as much business in 2020. And I think everyone's kind of on par with that
2020
as they did in 2021. Year. So, we have roughly 10 million closed year to date in multi-housing with another 9 million on the books in escrow.
I got a couple of that.
You've got a couple. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maybe around 60 units or so. Mm-hmm. It's part of you and Mr. Lucas.
Yeah, we appreciate you. So we'll get into our relationship a little bit and how we're developing that and what we've kind of done. Let's give some shout outs. So we got Mexican Sly on here. Story, nice to see you here. You're second. Aaron, what's going on? We got Wisconsin on here as well. Obviously, our buddy Mexican Sly on there. LA is here. Josh, St. Louis. I like it. Got Alabama on here. Shout out from Houston. Awesome. Keep the questions coming. I see a few questions on there. We'll get to those here momentarily. So keep filling up that chat box and let us know where you're from if you haven't. And give this video a like if you haven't. That really just helps push this out. I'm bringing on a guest. He's taking time out of his day to talk about real estate and to help give you free information. So the least you can do is hit that like button, whether you're watching now or later. So let's talk a little bit about, you. So we met, I think you contacted Lucas maybe a year and a half ago. You saw that we had bought some multifamilies and you just wanted to reach out to see if we were interested in buying more, right?
Yeah, I think that, I don't think I know. I had a listing for a 20-unit apartment complex in Hazelwood earlier this year. The listing started in February, and both you and Lucas had a deal nearby that prompted a phone call, or at least warranted a phone call. Hey, I've got this deal for sale. Would you have interest? And you and Lucas hopped on it, but lost.
We lost that one.
There was some pretty competitive bidding, not only with price, but with terms as well. And certain caveats that I guess the current owner of the property could, I guess, elude in this contract that you just could not, and respectfully so. Following that, because you had put in a good effort on Hazelwood, I contacted you guys about Shadow Lofts immediately. You're actually the first dollar that I made. And we took that down 2 Thursdays ago.
Yep, just a couple weeks ago.
Just a couple weeks ago. But that's really how Lucas and yourself and me all came into contact.
So I always tell people, whether they're on single families or multifamilies, just get to know people in your market. I say it all the time. And hustlers like Ben are going to maybe even get to know you. But just because we were active, he saw that we had bought before and we were on top of it as far as offering on, I guess, the 3 that you brought us, we bought one contract with the second and lost out on that one. But you want people that are active, that are willing to, put their foot forward and make offers. I tell that people all the time, whether it's apartment broker or wholesaler, if you don't respond or don't give offers, guess what? You're going to stop. You got options. You want to have someone you like working with and you know is going to come to the table with a good offer and has the funding.
Right.
I mean, why are we kind of doing more deals together?
The main part of my job is making really cold calls to apartment owners and understanding where they're at in their process with their asset, or have they recently refinanced, or have they repositioned it ready for sale. But getting to know, hopefully in a face-to-face type setting, and Lucas and yourself and me, we all met earlier this year. But getting to know owners in the market where I have listings in, and really the entire St. Louis MSA, knowing who's buying, who's holding, kind of standing put, and who's exploring the option of a sell. That's where the bulk of my business comes from, is from direct dials. And in doing so, you learn who's in a position to make a move and who has an appetite, and how big that appetite.
I'm hungry.
I know.
So that's the point. So he spends all this time and all this effort and all this energy in going out there and calling all these people and coming across deals. So that's why working with Ben's been great. So, we bought one, we're closing on another one here soon, and I'm confident we'll do several more, but I'm not spending any money to get those deals. Ben is doing all the work, and he is getting paid upon transaction, obviously. So he's not doing it for free. He's getting paid for it. But, we're combining our forces where I'm not mailing apartment owners like we've done in the past.
Right. Yeah.
And to get the deals, to source them, to try and get them. That's just, maybe we get a little better deal, but it's going to take effort and time. And we're going to have to look at a bunch of people, talk to a bunch of people. I'd much rather have him do it and pay him when we close on him and have him bring it to us. It's just a great way to use your resources wisely and have somebody else do the hustle. And then obviously we're hustling getting it, but you bring us the deals, and I'm not spending $1 in marketing for any of the multifamilies.
Or time once it's under contract, other than what you have available to do your physical inspection. That's really kind of the full service, and why I like to be with Marcus is because we are really a full service brokerage, and that goes from the client that we're serving on the list side. And once we have contract, we're pretty confident that it's going to appraise and move forward at that price. And then from a lending standpoint, moving forward, anything that is needed from the time contract signed to closing is my responsibility, and it falls on me to make sure that we perform for you.
Yeah, the stuff we've done without a broker, we're figuring out everything and going through everything. There's Adrian right there.
There he is.
But having Ben, he meets us everywhere. He handles with the paperwork. He helps contact with the owner. Just everything runs so much smoother when Ben's there. So let's get some questions now. Make sure to, like I said, fill up that chat box. If you haven't, let us know where you're from. Let us know. I saw a specific one on multifamily, but there's some other stuff we're going to get into as well. So bring the multifamilies, but if you got another one, that's great. So the question from JB is, how can I become a multifamily broker with no experience? The good news is everybody starts with no experience because you haven't experienced yet. So kind of, I guess, walk through, if someone wants to get in the multifamily broker game, how about kind of walking through, you don't go too much detail, how to become a broker, and then how to contact brokers. Because I think that's a big for people in your market. If you want multis, how to get a hold of Ben so he doesn't have to call you.
Yeah, well, I think that, my value add from a broker standpoint is not being reactive once I have a listing, meaning Sam and Lucas have a deal that they're at the end of their cycle and they want to sell. When I appraise that and put that on the market, then I'm not waiting for other brokers to call me for it. I already know who the prime candidates for that are. And if we miss on them, obviously there's a load of brokers and outside agencies we can encounter. But my experience, I benefited from starting with a great mentor. He showed me how to create a database of properties and just using an Excel spreadsheet, using the right programs to find the correct LLCs, and then going on the Secretary of State's website, finding out the actual owner from whose signature was on that, and then taking it a step further and doing my homework and finding a good phone number for them. That takes probably 25 to 30% of my week.
Okay.
So it's not just direct dials. It's not just managing escrows, but it's also building my database of people.
Databases.
Yeah, I mean, there's new owners, a bunch of deals that were never listed that come back on a property record search with a new owner that I've got to update, and I've got to find their phone number and try to reach out to them, and again, see what their plan of attack was, see what their investment goals were. So that's the best way to get in the business as a broker is learn your market, learn the buyers and sellers, and then reach out to them and find out what their plan of attack was. What are their real investment goals, and how can you help them?
How did you get involved with Marcus and Milchap? By the way, he used to play baseball professionally. This guy.
All right. Minor league baseball.
Hey, it's professional.
I didn't even get a cup of coffee to put coffee in.
They paid you.
But yeah, a small percentage. But yeah, that was a highly competitive.
You probably made more on our deal than you did all of your minor league career.
I think if anything, it made me predisposed to failure and calling people like most of your investors. I'm sure that most of them get calls daily. Hey, do you want to sell this? And most of the time, the answer is no. Nope. Click. See ya. Never want to sell it ever.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to deal with that adversity and just pick up the phone and dial the next person, I think baseball probably predisposed me for that.
It's a sport of failure, right?
Dude, I struck out as like a career 234 hitter.
There you go.
So I experienced a lot of failure and had to rebound.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that, if anything, making those cold calls is probably the most important part of becoming a broker.
And did you contact Marcus, or did they kind of reach out to you?
I was with a boutique brokerage, a smaller brokerage here in St. Louis prior, and had a good track record. One of the agents that was with Apartment Advisors had joined Marcus, and he spoke on my behalf to the regional manager at Marcus, and they brought me on, and the rest is kind of history.
All right. Somebody said, did it freeze? Hopefully, if we're freezing a little bit, I apologize. Stick with us. But cool. All right. So that was a good question there. So what's up, guys? Getting a few more people in there. A little more multifamily, and then I'll get into maybe some, broader real estate type questions. But we do got some multifamily ones coming in. So how do you find a 20-unit apartment complex for sale? So how do you? I know you call current owners an asset. That's your biggest strategy.
Yeah, my process, and really the process that gives us the most probability for a successful transaction is to identify a seller, and that comes through a large number of generally it means meeting with them for coffee, lunch, to discuss what they own. And I think probably the most important part is collecting their rent roll, collecting their profit and loss statement, a trailing 12-month kind of month over month where it shows each month individually. And giving them a broker opinion of value, or it's called a market position and pricing analysis. And then understanding where they're at in their timeline. Usually there's a purchase, there's a refinance, and then there's an upgrade made to the building to, enhance the value in year 5 when most of the loans expire. So that's really the process, is reaching out to these owners individually. And I would tell you that maybe 10% of my whole career has been on the phone with outside agencies, outside brokerages. So I don't really sell,
source your own
other people's deals.
How do you find those owners? Where do you kind of go? Is there certain places that people can go to find find owners of multi?
Yeah, I've used there's a program called RealQuest. Just to give a few plugs, RealQuest, and then LexisNexis, and LandVision. Those are 3 programs that you can purchase that will give you parcel information on any parcel in commercial industry or even residential. It's basically like having a nationwide MLS, where you can click on the property and it'll tell you the homeowner, it'll tell you what they paid for it, and in most cases it'll tell you who their bank loan.
It just gives you the legal, the public data, tax record type data stuff.
Yeah, but I'm selling these properties to guys like you and Lucas, so there's a large amount of residential and commercial owners that believe their property is worth X. In reality, it's worth less. And the reason it's worth less has to do with interest rate, where the market might be today versus where it should be, and correcting itself. But we try and focus on high probability deals.
Mhm.
In other words, we don't make a habit at Marcus of buying listings and telling you, hey, it's worth $1 million, and really it's worth 800,000, and that's where they come in.
Yeah.
If you find a broker that can bring you $1 million, great. I'm going to tell you what my clients like Lucas and Sam would buy it for, what's a good deal for everybody, and I'm going to take it to market. If it's not a good deal for my buyers, we don't list it.
Yeah, because us, we've done a few deals. We're not getting 20% off of like what you're thinking.
Yeah.
We got to pay right near everything because he plays both sides of it, and it's a fair deal for both, and both see it, and we usually come to pretty close terms with.
It needs to be, it needs to be a great deal for both.
Yes.
Where the seller's realizing the appreciation that he visualized when he bought it, and you're getting the rate of return that satisfies you over a period of time.
And then another service you can potentially use is batch leads to do another pump. They're actually one of our affiliates, so you get a free trial if you use them through us. So they're more on the residential side. I mean, I know you can search for 5 units and up and stuff like that. So probably not as focused on the multis as maybe some of the stuff you're talking about. But batch leads is really good for single families, and you can get multis too. You just code Faster Freedom, you get a free trial with them, and just. It's a free trial. I don't get paid on the free trial. Might as well just cancel it after 6 days.
I do this, and this is what I do all day. I realize that most of the people maybe watching the video or whatever, they have another job where they're not able to make 200 cold calls a week. So having a virtual assistant of some sort to kind of make those calls for you or batch leads definitely increases the amount of potential sellers that you could reach. There's no doubt.
For sure. So Wendy asks, is real estate license needed to start? So you don't need a real estate license to invest in real estate. You can, a couple states you actually do need one to wholesale if you're going to do more than one a year. But as far as fixing and flipping, renting, and in most states you do not need a license. But what about being an apartment broker? Do you have a license?
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm licensed by the state of Missouri. In order to begin making sales calls, not to purchase a property. If you call as a potential buyer, and you're not a real estate agent, that's one thing. But if you are a real estate agent licensed, I believe in any state, you have to let them know right off the bat.
Okay.
But yes, in order to start a career as a real estate agent or a broker, you do need to be licensed in the state that you're working in.
I like it. Keep the questions coming. We'll get to as many of them as we can. We got a good backlog of them. So if you asked it a while ago, I haven't got to it. We're still getting there. So don't worry, but you can obviously always ask it again. There's a good question on here specifically for you, Ben. So Ben, was your first and second year as a broker, what did it take for you to do the deals you're doing right now? So I guess kind of talk about the first couple of years, how much more was a struggle and how much have you kind of built like a book of business and kind of repetitive revenue?
I would tell you the first, and again, it's having a good mentor. And I still talk to him weekly. In fact, he's actually bought a couple assets from me because he's an owner now. But the first 3 months of my real estate career were dedicated to creating a database, not just of names and properties, but of actual good contact numbers. We call it scrubbing the database and making sure that when it's time to call 100 people, you have a number that works and goes directly to them. The following 9 months of my first year, and really probably the first 3 years of my career were cutting my teeth in learning who real buyers were and who would pay me the number we were asking and then come back and retrade after the fact. Mm-hmm. And in my industry of being a listing agent and representing sellers and bringing them buyers, it's important that the number that I put on my valuation is going to stay in place with a buyer, with their lender moving forward. So I don't say, hey, Sam, I can sell this for $2 million for you. And when we're under contract for 60 days, we're 60 days into it, you come back and say, hey, I need $200,000 off that price.
Yeah, that's not what you want to do.
And you learn that.
There's people that do that, right?
Yeah, the only way that you can learn that is really the psalm of experience and dealing with those people. And then in dealing with them, you learn kind of clues that, maybe it's not them, but somebody else that has the same sort of play wants to make. So those are really your first few years in meeting as many owners as you can. Whether or not they want to sell really isn't important, but just putting a face to a name, letting them know that you're active, giving them some sort of transaction resume that, hey, I haven't sold anything, but my business, the company I work for, this is what we've done.
Yeah.
And using them as leverage to maybe win a new listing. But those are really, that's really how your first 2 years are spent. And I'll be honest with you, it was worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
The opportunities for residential real estate agents and commercial agents alike is, it's a crazy market. And over time, I think real estate's done nothing. It's gone up and down, but it
goes up over time for
over
sure.
time. So regardless of what your homeowner's purchasing something for now, 30 years from now, when a loan expires, it's likely to be worth more.
Yes. And very, very likely, unless you didn't take care of it. But I think it's, I think the whole to wrap that up is no matter what you're wanting, wholesaling or a multifamily broker, whatever you're doing, you just have to put in the time and understand that it takes time, and it's going to take some hard work, and it gets easier over time. Your first deal is going to be way harder than your 10th deal. So just understanding that things take time for sure. Here's a good question. Sean says, what is escrow? I hear my parents talking about it one night, and now I'm really curious. Do you want to simply explain escrow?
Escrow just means it's under contract.
Yep.
That there was hypothetically a building on the market for $100,000. They have an accepted contract, and there has been earnest money placed down. It means the property is in escrow. There's an accepted contract on the property that someone's going to purchase.
I like it. All right, so there's some good questions coming in. We're getting. I'd have some to talk to them as well. We're getting kind of caught up. So if you thinking we're far behind, throw another question there. But this is a good one from JB. How does the buying process of commercial property differ from residential property?
I don't think it does a whole lot. There's again, I'm a multi-housing guy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to speak to, and I believe it's even less. And buying a triple net Walgreens that has a corporate guarantee. Hey, you're guaranteed to make this for the next 10 years. It's different than
bring me one of those at like an ACAP. All right.
Yeah. Good luck. They trade quick.
That was a joke.
Yeah, they don't trade rates.
Not at that. Yeah.
The ease comes with
was
the price
like a
tag.
3 probably.
Yeah, you're not going to lose money. It's guaranteed. But at the same time, you're not going to.
It's like a CD kind of.
Your net's not going to change for 10 years. You're going to make this.
Yep.
But the difference once under contract is nil.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you still have a physical due diligence period. You have a financing contingency period where you need to be in talks with your lender and making sure that you're pushing them to get to the finish line. The one difference maybe, and it's relative to whoever's buying it, would be the physical inspection.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes down to if you're looking for a property that needs a lot of work and you're looking to knock that price down a little bit. Or if you're looking to purchase something that's a little bit more turnkey, that physical inspection can be the only difference. But as far as contract and contract time to close, there's very little difference.
Yeah, once you buy it, it's pretty similar. Getting them under contract's different. Obviously, the places you look and the people you'll deal with, and
you have different competitors.
And the underwriting process is a little bit different because we don't have to get into too much, but we talked about a little bit earlier before we even went live. Cap rates are how you value multifamily properties for the most part.
It's one of the ways of measurement. Yeah.
So it's one of the ways to measure it. So a multifamily property, in simplicity, is valued on the area it's in, but mainly on the income it produces.
Yeah. So capitalization rate is a value that we find when we take the net operating income, which is your income, total income, minus your expenses. And that includes everything but your debt service.
Except your mortgage.
You take that number and divide it by the sale price, and that's your cap rate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. For the most part, by and large, capitalization rate comes in hand when you're paying all cash.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't take into effect the interest rate that you have on your loan. It doesn't have the terms involved, what have you. It basically says if you're going to pay all cash for this, this would be your rate of return.
Because it's a good baseline because everybody's terms are different. So that's why they're giving you that's why it's been created for a good baseline. Because I could buy it for the same price as somebody else, but my terms are different. It could be a way better loan, better purchase for me because I got 30-year at 3.25 fixed for 10 as opposed to somebody that
we've seen maybe I would say most of our transactions this year trade at a cap rate that's pretty compressed or lower than you would traditionally see in St. Louis. But the cash on cash return that's being offered at the same time is exceeding 10%, sometimes 15%.
Yeah.
So while the annual return might not be the same as the St. Louis MSA average, your cash on cash and the liquid that you're taking each year, which is giving you the ability to grow, is still present.
Mm-hmm.
You're paying more because rents are higher and interest rates are lower. So there's more money coming in and it costs less to borrow it. So your cap rate's going to be lower because of that. The cash on cash shouldn't change too much. And that's, I think, for anyone that's just starting or growing or means to really grow in a short period, the cash on cash return needs to be prevalent because that's where you're, that's your cash camel. That's what you're using to purchase the next deal.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the liquid that you want to have on hand until you have enough inventory that you can, use them as leverage. Use your 2 apartment buildings as leverage on a future deal. So cash on cash would be king in my mind.
I like it. So and this is the depends answer. So what is a good cap rate? Because that makes sense that people would ask that if they're just kind of learning about cap rates.
Well, cap rate, by and large across the St. Louis area, it measures around 7%, 7.00. But you hear stories of people buying a 10 cap, which is if you don't know, that costs you a lot less.
Yeah, the lower the cap rate,
the more expensive.
The higher the cap rate.
The higher the number, the less expensive. And all that means is that you bought a building that was probably in distress, and you had
or in a distressed area.
Yeah, or in a distressed area. But in any way, shape, or fashion, it's been distressed, and you have to inject money to correct units to stabilize that property with market rents. When it's all said and done, you may have bought it at a 10 cap, but after you inject all your cash into it, it's going to operate probably around between a 7 and an 8, and that's generally the average for our metropolitan.
Yeah, so super rough. Depending on like your area, your state, or your city, it's kind of people from all over. I mean, like you said, St. Louis is a pretty mid-level city. So I mean, mid-level, like really, a good building in a good area is going to be, a good decent area is going to be like that 6 to 8 cap. Like a crazy nice building in a super hot area like Clayton or someone really nice St. Louis, that's going to be like a 4 cap. And then if you're in a rougher house or a rougher building or rougher area, it could be 10, 12 cap or higher. Just so that's kind of the ranges. So here's a really good question on here. So how do you protect yourself? And I'll kind of go first, Ben, and you can kind of clean this one up if you have any other thoughts. How do you protect yourself if the market crashes while being in so much debt from refinancing all the property? So the value of my real estate really, it matters for sure, but it really only matters when I'm buying or refinancing. So it's going to do this, the value of my real estate. The banks that I work with, didn't call any notes due in 08, knock on wood, stuff can happen. But as long as I'm making my payments and I'm collecting rent, what I'm confident I'm going to do, the value of my real estate is going to do this like crazy. It's going to go up, but it's going to go down, up, down, up. It's going to go up over time. So if it dips, I'm okay with that in the long term, as long as I'm not looking to sell it. The value honestly doesn't really matter if I'm not looking to sell or refinance. And the fact that I do buy with debt, but I have several million in equity still, means I have some room to play with. So if the values drop a little bit, I'm confident that I'll still have a decent amount of equity, and I'm confident in my ability to have managed properties and collect rent. Therefore, I'll still be able to pay my debt. So nothing's foolproof, nothing's guaranteed, but I'm pretty confident the fact that my systems are in place, and I have, I'm not buying at market price. I have equity built into all of the properties I buy. So, and then I increase value pretty quickly after I buy them. So that's kind of my personal take on, leveraging and still growing, but still feeling secure. And I also just recently paid off a handful of rentals that we kind of, have paid off houses as kind of a nice security as well. That's kind of me personally. What are your thoughts on kind of in general using debt to grow wealth and being protected?
Being protected, I really think it comes down to the diligence process. Understanding the market before you buy it, and having I guess an exit strategy. You should have everything planned out before you sign the dotted line and get that building purchased.
Mm-hmm.
Before it becomes your own. Should really be no question marks in a plan. But doing your own due diligence, making sure the building is what the listing broker or the seller says it is, and purchasing it for the right price. I've seen from some of the clients that I serve that many of them that have grown to become the largest in our area live in that market between 600 and 900 in rents,
mm-hmm.
because they feel like in any economy, those rents are going to be achievable. That once you get below 600 in any economy, the rents can get difficult to collect. Maybe because the tenant that you're renting to,
mm-hmm.
that you can just have issues regardless. But in a good economy, you can rent that for 900, and in the worst economy, 650, and you're still making money at that 650 number. Anything over that is kind of icing on the cake. But doing the due diligence in the beginning and understanding the market that you're buying in, I think it would be the best advice that I would give. And really do your homework, and don't base your future or your money on guesses.
I like it. No, I agree 100%. So let's get into some questions that I had that I know will be good for people that are in the space a little bit. So is the 1031 tax change going away? It's been talked about for 6 to, or probably longer than that, ever since, the presidential switched. So what do you think about the 1031 tax change in its current form, and do you see it going away, or do you see it changing maybe?
So it's
what is a 1031 tax change? You want to explain that quickly?
1031 allows you to take your dividend, the money that you made, you bought it for 100, you sold it for 200, you subtract your depreciation, and the meat there, whatever you take home from the title company, if you take a check home, and you don't choose to exchange that, you're going to be taxed by the government right around 20% of what that profit is. Right?
So it's a way to not pay taxes or kick it down the road. So it's just a way to incentivize more action and incentivize you to keep investing.
Exactly. Instead of paying Uncle Sam, you can use that profit to purchase something else. In most cases, it's larger.
Or you can pay Sam faster freedom, anything.
Or that. Maybe give you something for your biceps.
There you go.
But you defer paying that tax for the time being. You don't avoid it. I mean, everyone's going to pay the piper one day. Everyone's going to pay Uncle Sam. It could be you or your children when you get out. Somebody is going to pay taxes for the real estate that you own. That being said, the 1031 and kind of the whirlwinds or trade winds, we have at Marcus, we have a lobbyist that sits outside the Senate, and we have another one that sits outside the House,
mm-hmm.
and they are directly connected to all talks that are going on. The talks that have kind of taken shape and are giving my business some, I guess it's a driver,
mm-hmm.
if you will, is that there's a very, very large sentiment that before the end of the fourth quarter, they're going to pass a tax reform law, which increases the capital gains tax by about 100%. It goes from roughly 20% to 40% of your profit.
Mm-hmm.
And that you'll be capped out each year, that maybe Sam and Lucas can realize the first $500,000 of dividend or appreciation each year without being taxed. And then anything you sell on top of that for the rest of the year, you're going to be subject to, and it breaks down to roughly 40.3% of your tax or of your profit.
Mm-hmm.
So if you make $1 million, you're going to pay $400,000 in tax money. Yeah, no. And that's definitely increased the activity in the market,
mm-hmm.
from an apartment standpoint or commercial standpoint in general. Is there are people who have, in some cases, either paid off their debt or inherited
mm-hmm.
from a parent or a loved one that passed away. They've inherited this complex. They stand to make a substantial amount, even with the current taxes that are in place, which are around 20%. And if they wait, they could incur up to as much as 40.3%.
So people like get out now before it goes up.
And that's the thought. Is it passed? No. There's been speculation. Well, will there be a year of kind of like a grandfather clause in there where they give you guys a year to get it done? And the consensus is no. Is that the people that pass this law know they're going to get slapped on the wrist, and rather than get slapped when they pass it and then slap when it goes into effect, they only want to get slapped once. Let's rip the Band-Aid off. Let's start it now. And it comes down to, it's low-hanging fruit for the U.S. government to pay for a lot of the, for the administration that's there now, to pay for a lot of the services that they've said they were going to do. And taxing those that are selling real estate is kind of low-hanging fruit. It's easiest for them to grab.
Yeah, and so kind of to take that a little bit macro is, so laws are changed, things happen, like it gets reformed. Who's not to say in 10 years it'll get dropped down to 30 or maybe go up. So things change. So as long as you're, you're not like dependent on one specific law or you're only selling your building to take advantage of that 1031 and you're getting into a building that's maybe not the best investment. As long as you're, like you said earlier, investing wisely, doing the proper underwriting and running and trusting your numbers, laws are going to change, taxes will change, but something else will change or something else will potentially be an opportunity. So you just got to look at the big picture in general and not be worried about one specific. Double your taxes could double if you're selling that much, or you just hold on to it longer until something happens, or, just the goal is to push taxes away, because generally I'm going to make more in 10 years than I'm making now. So you're going to make more money. So you're pushing off the taxes. So when you do have to bite that bullet, you have more income coming. So it's not as big a hit on your discretionary income.
I think that there's goods and bads with it. Obviously, the stress on the goods is, if you're a seller, you know where your tax liability is now. You may not know where it would be 8 months from now. You know exactly what you're going to walk away from closing with now. As a buyer, if your plan is to hold it, through this administration and possibly the next one, for the next 8 to 10 years, it doesn't really affect you.
That's what we're doing, right? That's why we're buying now. That's why we're buying right now.
You're not selling it to have to incur any tax liability. So it doesn't really affect you until that day where you're at the end of your cycle.
Kind of like the price, right? I talked earlier, the value doesn't really affect you until that time.
Right.
So don't get caught up on something that's going to, who knows, it maybe it'll go up.
If you're a seller, it affects you.
Yeah, but if I'm not looking to sell, don't get caught up on it. It may go up, it may go down, but in 10 years, it's probably going to be different. Put it that, but there'll be different things out there to.
Yeah, they've been trying to pass the tax reform for a few decades. I think probably since Reagan administration. So it hasn't passed yet, but there's a large population that believes before the 2022 election, while they still have a few of the houses, the Senate and the Congress, that they're going to try and push this through.
They're going to try and push it because they got the vote.
Again, if you're just purchasing now and your timeline is stretched out 6-7 years to the next administration, you don't even worry about it. But if you're thinking of maybe capitalizing on something you've improved and your timeline's there, I think it's worth a deep understanding of what's going on in Washington, D.C. and how it might affect you.
I agree. Awesome. Well, how about you give some advice for someone who's wanting to get into multifamily investing? What would your 30 seconds, 90-second advice to someone who's wanting to get into the multifamily game? Maybe they have single family experience, maybe they don't, but they want to get into multifamily. What can you give them in the next couple of minutes to make them more successful?
Well, it's an information age, and you definitely need to do your research, whether that's on your own and purchasing programs that can show you who owns a property and what they purchased it for, and you can measure that against the improvements that you're finding on the deal. But buy smart. Especially early going on. I think that less risk and having to, if you're just starting, you don't know contractors, you don't know people who can do kitchens and bathrooms, and the price of that's expensive right now. The price of a 2x4s.
I know, I'm building a house, Ben. Thanks for rubbing it in. I appreciate it. I actually built 2x6s.
So buying a deal that you don't need to dump into to get it making you money each month is where I would start. Like Shoto. I've sold 24 duplexes to guys that are just starting off. One of my favorite clients is a guy that I went to high school with. He used a $75,000 home equity line of credit. to put down on a duplex in Del Mar. Used that 1031 to buy 4 units in Alamo. Long story short, in 6 years, he has 64 units across South St. Louis.
That's pretty cool.
And it's just using what's available to him. I mean, he's a guy that's a pharmaceutical sales rep, but he's grown his business by nearly 200% in just a short 6 years by understanding how money works and how he can leverage what he already has into purchasing something new. But buying he bought in U City, Clayton. He bought a duplex that were 1,300 foot per. He had tenants that would pay him 2 days early, and he used that over 12 months to build up some income, and then use that to purchase a 4-family in Clayton. Same sort of tenant, same sort of unit mix, but he went from 2 to 6. He sold those 2 deals, bought a 12 unit. So with one HELOC, home equity line of credit.
That's called leveraging responsibly.
He's never spent a dime of his own money either. It's just what he's already earned through making payments on his home.
So the point is, there's a lot of different ways to do it. Just be smart about it and lean on other people in your market.
Be smart.
Yeah, be smart. Obviously, you have my YouTube, my TikTok, my Instagram. I bring on people like Ben that are experts, and just trying to leverage technology that everybody has access to these days.
When you're just starting, you can't afford to lose.
Correct. Yeah.
Any win is a win. But any sort of loss is a big loss. Even if you've got to, put a new hot water heater in a property that and an AC condenser that's $1,500 out of pocket or $4,000 out of pocket, can be a big hit when you're just starting off. So buy smart. Your dollars are like soldiers, and use them wisely. You may not make a ton on your first deal, but it's important that you make money. And you're able to grow. If you lose, you're always behind the 8 ball.
Yep, I agree. Awesome. Well, thank you, Ben. I appreciate you coming on. So good thing I didn't have to embarrass you with my biceps this time, but we'll put an exclamation point on this one. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next week. I may be me. I may have a guest. We'll see. See you next week at 2. YouTube videos come out on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 3:45 Central. Go live every Wednesday at 2 Central. See you next time.